$160 billion. That's how much Americans paid in credit card interest in 2024, according to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. That's more than some countries' entire economies, and it's money that could have been invested, saved, or spent on things that actually matter. Instead, it went straight into the pockets of credit card companies. Here's the kicker. A huge chunk of that interest came from people who thought they were doing the right thing by making their minimum payment. This video will show you how the minimum payment trap works, why it's so easy to fall into, and how you can escape it. Credit cards are everywhere. They're in your wallet, in ads, in the checkout line. For most young adults, they're the first financial product they ever use. But that first credit card comes with a hidden snare, the minimum payment. It sounds harmless. Just pay a little bit each month and you're fine. But that little bit is a trap. The minimum payment is the smallest amount you can pay and stay in good standing. It's not designed to help you pay off your debt. It's designed to keep you paying. In 2024, about 15% of cardholders made only the minimum payment, the highest share since at least 2015. And with average APRs at record highs, the cost of carrying a balance is steeper than ever. This video will break down exactly how the minimum payment trap works, how much it can cost you, and what you can do to avoid it. Because once you understand the trap, you can make it work for you, not against you. So what exactly is a minimum payment? It's the smallest amount your credit card company says you must pay each month to keep your account in good standing. It's usually a percentage of your balance, plus any fees and interest. Say you owe $5,000. Your minimum might be $100. That sounds fine, right? But here's the catch. The rest of your balance doesn't just disappear. It carries over to next month, and interest starts piling on top of it. That's called a revolving balance. And the interest rate, called the APR, is often brutally high. The average APR on a general purpose card in 2024 was 25.2%. That means if you owe $5,000, you're paying over $100 a year in interest alone if you only make minimum payments. That's like paying for a small car every year just to hold on to your debt. Think of it this way. Making the minimum payment is like trying to fill a leaky bucket with a teaspoon. You're adding a little, but the hole at the bottom is bigger. The interest is the leak, and no matter how fast you scoop, you're losing the race. The only way to win is to patch the hole, pay off the balance in full, or at least pay enough to cover the interest and start chipping away at the principal. That's the first step to escaping the trap. Let's look at the numbers more closely. In 2024, the average APR for general-purpose credit cards hit 25.2%. That's the highest level since at least 2015. For new accounts, it was even worse, 27.5%. 10 years ago, that number was 19.8%. So young adults opening their first cards today are borrowing at a much higher cost. And with the average balance per cardholder at $5,300, the interest adds up fast. If you owe $5,000 at 25.2% APR and only make the minimum payment, it could take you years to pay it off. Some estimates say it could take over a decade, and you'd end up paying double the original amount. That's because the interest keeps compounding on the remaining balance. The more you owe, the more interest you pay. And the more interest you pay, the longer it takes to get out. It's a vicious cycle. That's why the CFPB says consumers paid $160 billion in interest in 2024. That's up from $105 billion in 2022. That's a $55 billion jump in just 2 years. And that's not even counting the fees, which we'll get to later. The bottom line, the numbers are stacked against you if you only pay the minimum. You might wonder why credit card companies make minimum payments so low. The answer is simple. They make more money that way. In the past decade, card issuers actually lowered monthly minimum payments. Why? To encourage consumers to take on more debt and take far longer to pay it off. That's a quote from a white paper by a debt settlement company. The lower the minimum, the more interest accrues, and the more profit the issuer makes. It's like a gym membership that costs you $10 a month but charges you $100 every time you skip a workout. The gym wants you to forget about it because they're making money on the penalty. Credit cards are the same. They want you to carry a balance because that's how they earn interest. In fact, the share of accounts that revolve balances returned to pre-pandemic levels of around 50% in 2024. Half of all cardholders are carrying a balance and paying interest. So the minimum payment is not your friend. It's a lure. It's designed to keep you in debt, not to help you get out. Understanding that is the first step to breaking free. A debt trap is when you have to take on new debt just to make the payments on your existing debt. It's like being in a hole and someone throws you a shovel, but the shovel is also a ladder that keeps you in the hole. Credit card minimum payments can easily lead to a debt trap. Here's how it happens. You owe $5,000. You make the minimum payment of $100, but the interest is $120, so your balance actually grows. Now you owe more than you did before. To cover that, you might use your credit card for groceries or gas because you don't have cash. That adds to your balance. Soon you're making payments that don't even dent the principal. You're just paying interest. And if you miss a payment, you get hit with late fees which add to your balance. Before you know it, you owe more than you started with. That's the trap. And it's not rare. The CFPB says that in 2024, about 15% of cardholders made only the minimum payment. That's millions of people stuck in this cycle. The scariest part? Many of them don't even realize it's happening. They think they're doing the right thing by paying on time, but they're just treading water, and the water is rising. Let's make this concrete. The average credit card balance in 2024 was $5,300. Let's say you have that balance on a card with a 25.2% APR. If you only make the minimum payment, which is typically 1% of the balance, that's about $53 a month. But the interest on that balance is about $111 a month. So your minimum payment doesn't even cover the interest. Your balance keeps growing. Even if you paid $150 a month, it would take you years to pay it off, and you'd end up paying thousands in interest. But if you paid the full balance as soon as possible, you'd pay zero interest. That's the key. Credit cards are great if you pay them off in full every month. They're terrible if you carry a balance. In fact, for prime credit card holders, the average balance is even higher, $8,700. That's a huge amount of debt hanging over people's heads, and with interest rates that high, it's like trying to climb a mountain with a boulder strapped to your back. The only way to make progress is to lighten the load, pay more than the minimum, or better yet, pay it all off. Not all debt is created equal. Some debt can actually help you build wealth, like a mortgage or a student loan. These are called good debt because they can increase your earning potential or give you an asset that appreciates. But credit card debt is generally considered bad debt. Why? Because it carries high interest and is often used for things that don't build assets, like eating out or buying clothes. The interest you pay on a credit card doesn't give you anything in return. It's just money down the drain. In contrast, a mortgage might have a 4% interest rate, and the house might appreciate in value. But a credit card charges 25% or more, and the stuff you buy with it loses value immediately. That's a huge difference. So when you use a credit card, you're borrowing money at a very high cost. If you can't pay it off in full, you're making a bad deal. That's why some financial experts say you should treat credit cards like cash. Only spend what you can afford to pay back at the end of the month. That way, you get the rewards and the convenience without the interest. It's the best of both worlds. Beyond interest, credit cards come with a load of fees. In 2024, consumers paid a total of $31.3 billion in credit card fees, up 23% from 2022. These include late fees, over-limit fees, and annual fees. Late fees can be as high as $40. If you make a late payment, that fee gets added to your balance, and then you pay interest on that fee. It's like a snowball rolling downhill, but not the good kind. It just keeps growing. Late fees are especially dangerous for minimum payment payers, because if your minimum payment is slightly late, you get hit with a fee and your balance goes up. And then next month, your minimum payment goes up too. It's a spiral. That's why it's so important to set up autopay for at least the minimum, even if you plan to pay more. That way you never miss a payment and you never get hit with a late fee. And if you do get a fee, don't just accept it. Call your card issuer and ask them to waive it. Sometimes they will, especially if you're a good customer. But the best strategy is to avoid fees altogether by paying on time and in full. Let me tell you about Sarah. She's not real, but her story is all too common. Sarah got her first credit card in 2023, right after she turned 18. The APR was 27.5% because it was a new account. She used it for everyday expenses, gas, groceries, the occasional coffee. Within a year, she had a balance of $2,000. She thought she was handling it well. She made the minimum payment every month, which was about $40. But the interest on her $2,000 at 27.5% was about $46 a month, so her balance wasn't going down. In fact, it was creeping up. At the end of 2024, her balance was $2,100. She had paid over $500 in interest, but her balance was higher than when she started. She was stuck. She couldn't stop using the card because she needed it for essentials, and she couldn't pay it off because she didn't have the extra cash. Sarah is part of the 15% of cardholders who make only the minimum payment, but she doesn't have to be. The moment she understands the trap, she can start to dig her way out, and so can you. Then there's the store card trap. Private label credit cards. Those are cards issued by specific retailers, like a clothing store or a gas station, are even more dangerous. In 2024, 20% of private label cardholders made only the minimum payment. That's up from 17% in 2022, and their APRs are even higher. The average APR for private label cards was 31.3% in 2024, the highest level since at least 2015. Imagine you buy a new laptop for $1,000 with a store card at 31.3% APR. You make the minimum payment of $25 a month, but the interest is about $26 a month, so your balance barely budges. It would take you over a decade to pay it off, and you'd end up paying almost 3 times the original price. And that laptop is probably worth $50 by then. That's the trap. These cards are designed to make you a loyal customer, but they end up making you a debt slave. Don't fall for the instant discount or the rewards points. The interest will eat you alive. If you're going to use a store card, treat it like cash and pay it off immediately. Otherwise, you're just handing your money to the store. So here's what you need to take away from all this. First, the minimum payment is the minimum, not the goal. It's the slowest way to pay off your debt, and it can trap you for years. Second, the math is not on your side. With APRs above 25%, carrying a balance is expensive. Third, credit card debt is bad debt. It doesn't build assets, it just builds interest. Fourth, always pay more than the minimum, or ideally, pay the full statement balance. That way you never pay a cent of interest. And finally, if you're already stuck, don't panic. There are ways out, like the debt avalanche method or a balance transfer. But the first step is awareness. Now you know how the trap works. Use that knowledge to take control of your money. If this video helped you see the minimum payment trap a little clearer, hit that subscribe button. It helps the channel a lot. And leave a comment with your own number. What's the highest APR you've ever seen on a credit card? I read every comment. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.